All right, let's move on. Let's talk about persuasive. Now, persuasive speeches has a little bit of a different look and feel to it, and we'll go through that today. Anybody heard of this gentleman's name, Edward R. Murrow? Okay, who's Edward R. Murrow?
He was during the McCarthy era. He was the one that kind of called out the witch hunt, basically.
He was a media guy, and he pretty famous when it comes to what you were talking about in the McCarthy era. But he said this. He said that to be persuasive, we must be believable. To be believable, we must be credible. And to be credible, we must be truthful. It's a mouthful, isn't it? In a persuasive speech, I think this is very important, that we have to be believable, we have to be credible, and we have to be truthful. With all those elements, we will be effective, persuasive speakers. So, let me ask you a couple of questions. Where does belief come from?
Our experiences.
Our experiences, isn't it? So, in a persuasive situation, we want to use things that that come from our belief systems, right? Whatever it might be, how you look at the world, it doesn't matter. And then, how about credibility? Where does credibility come from?
Experience.
Okay. So beliefs come from experience. Our credibility comes from experience. Now, we all have different experience, right? So let me ask you this. What's the truth? You ever thought about that? If everybody has a different view,
Everyone has their own truth.
everybody has their own truth, don't they?
Why we have persuasive speeches, everyone believes different.
Mm-hmm. So when someone's asking you to vote for them in a political election, they have certain beliefs that they want you to join with them with, right? And that's what allows you or makes you feel like they would be the right person to vote for. But everybody doesn't believe that, right? I think every president of the United States has had people that don't believe him and had people that do believe him. And so, in order to make this happen and get them to be persuaded, they have to present their beliefs, present their credibility in the matter, and hopefully we change our truth along the way. So, to understand in persuasive speeches specifically, that the meaning is not in the words you use, but it's in the people that you're presenting to. So it's very important that you ensure that they understand where you're coming from in this. So what is a persuasive speech? It's first to prevail on a person to do something. You're trying to convince someone to do something. So if we had our snowboarding speech, if we're trying to persuade the audience, we would maybe arrange it a little bit differently to get them to go and to try snowboarding, right? It's all in your intent, what you're trying to do. Another definition is to induce to believe by appealing to reason. What that means is logic. Okay, we use logic to get your audience to understand. So we use facts, figures, and so on in order to try to persuade them. And it comes down to this. It's the process of guiding people toward the adoption of an idea, attitude, or action by rational and symbolic means. Okay? Several definitions, all of them work. It's also used to convince your audience that there's a problem and that you have a solution to that problem. Have you been to speeches like that before? Here's the problem, here's the solution. You're trying to convince them to agree with your solution. You'll do this, you guys, in your jobs. You get in a situation where you may have to persuade someone to do it your way or agree with you, whatever it might be. And you're trying to motivate them to change their opinion, policy, or regulation. There's a lot to it, isn't there, when it comes to a persuasive speech. So, a lot of times in a persuasive speech, we have to ask people, what is your knowledge? What is your experience? In essence, you need to understand yours, and in some way, your audience as well. And then, of course, credibility comes into play when you convince them that the subject relates to them. That makes sense? Again, this is used often in political elections and even in the day-to-day stuff that goes on. You have to convince your audience how this relates to them. And obviously, you're going to have to deal with some things. Questions. You're going to have to deal with opinions. And you're going to have to deal with some controversy. Because not everybody's going to agree with you. Okay? And this is why meaning is in people. Okay? Walk through that. Let's look at a basic persuasive speech. It has its introduction, where you get their attention. You give your general and specific purpose, or you preview. And you share with your audience the significance, why it's significant to them, or why you believe it is significant to them. So, what we do then is to break down the body into the main points, and then we transition through them. And from each main point you transition, and then you conclude it with the summary and review, and then again you express the significance. Why is this important to them? So let's look at a couple specific ones. And of course, wrap it up. This is obviously very important. You wrap it around whatever you want them to do, a call to action. I hope you'll go out and try snowboarding in the next month, whatever it might be. Or I hope you go out and vote, or something to that effect. All right, let's look at the first one, problem solution. And again, what is a problem solution? Speech, we have a problem, here are some solutions, right? So, the first main point, we're going to have to deal with the document. You have to document the existence. This is why there's a problem, and so you'll talk about that, and using various reasons that this is a problem, whatever it might be. That's what you cover in your first point. The second point then is you present the solution to the problem. Okay, here are my solutions. Bang, bang, bang. Okay? But what you're doing here is you're guiding them through the process. You know, folks, we have a problem with this. Let me share some and why this is why it's a problem. Let me share some of your solutions. Obviously, it's going to go quicker than that, but again, these are what you do in a problem solution. And then you transition, obviously, between each of the main points. That's a given here. In a cause and effect, we have a cause, something that causes this effect. That's what we're trying to present. So what we do here, we document the existence of a problem. We have this going on. This effect is happening. Okay? So you document that. And then in the second main point, you analyze the cause. Why is it happening? And then the third one, you present the solution to the problem. A little bit more detail, but you document it, you analyze the causes, and then you present the solution. And of course, I'm transitioning. And the advantage, disadvantage takes into consideration, you're documenting the existence of a problem. You analyze and compare the causes. There may be several reasons why you think this problem's happening. So you analyze and compare all of those. And then you present your solutions to those problems. And again, transition. Now, I want to spend a little time on this one in particular. This is Monroe's motivated sequence. And there are several things that go into Monroe's motivated sequence. The first thing when you do a motivated sequence type of speech is that you get the audience's attention first. Okay? And then you find out what their needs are. What are their needs? So you're thinking through this process as you're putting your speech together. Now, as far as needs go, anybody heard of Abraham Maslow?
Yeah.
And needs theory? Have you taken a psychology class? You probably are aware of him. This is Abraham Maslow. He developed the hierarchy of needs in the 1950s, and it's useful in that he shows why and how individual needs motivate and how they vary. Okay, and after his death, there's been some other variations put to it, but I kind of go with just Maslow's basic 5. Let's go through those so you understand what that is. The first is physiological needs. So we have physiological basic needs, okay? And then his next level is the safety needs. That's so we have safety, and then love and belonging. That's the third one. I'm not going to go into detail on these because you all probably have discussed these in a psychology class, so I don't want to just beat a dead horse here. Then of course you have esteem needs. And then he says if you have all of those needs taken care of, then you're self-actualized. That's the 5th level, okay? You're self-actualized. And interesting enough, I think we find ourselves going up and down these bottom 4 all the time. And sometimes, we might be going hungry. Kind of a real thing going on right now. Where people are going to, the food banks and things like that. Their physiological needs aren't being taken care of. They don't have a home. Some people have this, but they don't feel safe. And so, and then of course, love and self-esteem. So I find that we kind of just go up and down those 4. I don't know anybody that's actually self-actualized, but I think it's a good goal. But what I'm trying to point out here is that we all have needs, okay? And so when we're doing this type of a speech, we need to key in on those needs. You think of in political environment, we have our politicians all the time saying, you know, we want to take care of you, and we want to make sure you have jobs, and we want to make sure of this and this and this. What they're doing is they're trying to get in on it to help your needs here, to key in on those. And so when they make presentations, they'll key in on those because those are what are important to us. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? So as you're doing this and presenting, you want to make sure that you look at needs here. So let's go back to the sequence again. So what I'd like to do here is kind of take you through the process. Let's just use buying a car for an example, okay? When you go to a car lot, what does the salesman first do?
Ask to see what kind of car you're looking for.
Well, at first he comes out and introduces himself, right? I mean, that's pretty much a given.
Ask to get personal.
Yeah, trying to get personal, yeah, those kind of things. So he's trying to get your attention. So obviously you want to do that in a presentation where you're before an audience. Kind of look at these kind of side by side. And then, like you said, he tries to find out what your needs are, right? So, for example, let's say you got a family of 6 kids. Okay? What if the salesman's paying attention, what kind of vehicle is he going to push you to? Or
Awful
show you?
one.
An awful one. Okay.
A big one.
A bigger car, right? He's not going to take you over to the Mini Coopers, right? Let's tell you a Mini Cooper.
Thank you. Fast.
So, you know, you have to, as a speaker, you need to understand the needs of your audience, just like a salesman at a car lot is trying to understand your needs, so that they can satisfy those needs. See how this works, kind of side by side here? You have your needs, and then you present how you're going to satisfy those needs. Now, the salesman will take you to a van, for example. Let's say a van. You got 6 kids, you need to tow them around, those kind of things. Still kind of up in the air what you want to do, right? What's the next step? What do they have you do? What's that?
They'll let you drive it.
Okay, they give you the keys, and you go out and drive it. Well, this is the step in the motivated sequence where that comes into play. You want to give a clear mental picture. I don't know how many cars I've purchased in my life that up until the visualization stage, I was still not decided what I wanted to do. It's when I got in the car and saw myself driving around in it and liking how I felt in it, that I actually decided that I wanted that car. This and a great example of this is there's this new Chrysler
200?
What is it?
200? Is that the one that had a smoke commercial on?
No, this one, I can't even remember the name of it, but I thought it was the coolest looking car. It's kind of a sporty car. Don't remember the model now because it's kind of gone from my mind. But I thought, you know, from looking at it and thought, hey, this would be a great car it looks cool, you know, it'd be a great car to drive. When I got into it and drove it, I went, ugh. That's probably why I forgot what car it was. Because it just didn't appeal to me in the visualization stage. But I've had other cars where I've gone and got in them and, hey, this is really nice, I like this. And so visualization is very important. So you have to focus on needs, you have to satisfy those needs, you need to get them to visualize what's going on. and then in the end, you get them to sign on the dotted line. Okay? You're gonna get them to take action. You're gonna ask them to take action. If you've ever been to a presentation where someone's trying to get you to buy something, and they're up there and they give you all of this great stuff, and then they say, now on the back table I have books, and you've probably seen and tapes and all of those kind of things. They're using the motivated sequence to get you to buy their product. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's Monroe's motivated sequence. Now, something you need to understand with persuasive presentations as well is what is called the social judgment theory. This is a communication theory. This is one that when I first heard it, it kind of really appealed to me, and it made sense. But what social judgment theory does is it has 5 principles to it. And what it does is it breaks down how we judge things into categories. Now, the first category is what is called an anchor. Okay, what do you think an anchor would be to an audience member? What would be their anchor?
Chair.
What's that?
Chair.
A chair? How about it would be their basic belief, right? Their belief system, where they're at. Now, when you think of something in a political realm, we have on one side, we have the left and we have the right? Have you ever found anybody that was either totally to the left or totally to the right? Maybe. Okay. But I would tell you, those are the extremes. Most of the time, you're going to find people somewhere along that spectrum. Okay? When you hear in the political environment, blue dog Democrat, is that what it is? What it means is that it's a Democrat that is leaning towards the Republican or whatever view, the Republican view. Does that make sense? So what that tells you is that they're not totally to the one side. They're somewhere along that spectrum. So wherever that person is in that spectrum, that's their anchor. Now it's different for everybody, isn't it? Okay? So think of that in when you're making a presentation to an audience. You're trying to get them to kind of move from their anchor. Is that going to be a difficult prospect? In a lot of cases, yeah. Well, what we need to understand is there's some other areas out here. There's what is called an area of acceptance. So what happens is in that anchor, there's an area that will be different for everybody, that if you present something just in that their area of acceptance, they'll maybe move within that area because it's comfortable and they're good with that. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? You have an area of non-commitment where it's, it doesn't matter. If it's in that area, they go, whatever. And then you have the last one, which is the area of rejection, where if it's in that area, they say, no way, no how. I'm not going to accept that. Does that make sense? So does this help you understand that when you're doing a persuasive speech, you're going to find, does that mean everybody's going to agree with you when you present your view? I've had students talk about legalizing marijuana. Okay? That's my area of rejection. Okay? And anybody who tries to make an argument towards legalizing it or whatever, I won't even listen to them, I'll shut down. But then you have people that might be their area of acceptance, and they're going, okay, well, let me kind of look at this and think about it a little bit. Does that make sense? So, what happens then in social judgment theory is we receive the information and then we locate it in one of those areas. Now, there's an element to this that you need to understand too, which is your ego involvement. And what that means is that when you have these categories, if you look at how I've got that set up, they're pretty much, you know, even across the board. But what you may find here is that the area of acceptance might be smaller, where the area of non-commitment may be bigger. Or so it's going to, based on the person's beliefs or ego, that they're going to, those areas are going to be different. So it's not, there's not just that fine line. It's going to be different for everybody. And that's why often we distort information. We try to make it fit into a category. Now, some years ago, you guys probably, you weren't around. Most of you probably were just very little. I mean, you can't remember the date of this thing. But the OJ trial, sat there at work, watched it. It was, you know, every day, everybody was watching it. Of course, we didn't have internet at that time, and so, or internet wasn't as big as it is now. And so we were watching it on TV, and one of the things that I think made this trial go the way it did to a non-guilty was the glove situation. And what had happened was there was this glove that was left at the scene, bloody glove, okay? And in their infinite wisdom, the prosecution determined that they wanted OJ to try on this glove. Okay? You have to understand the glove that it was. This glove was tight-fitting already, okay? But what they had him do was put on a rubber glove first, so it wouldn't damage the evidence, and then he struggled to put it on. Well, his attorney said, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. Okay, that was the famous line. And you could see him actually struggling to put on. Well, yeah, he had a rubber glove on, for heaven's sakes.
And they did take into account the leather that it had sat in? Or,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Leather shrink, leather shrinks when it gets black.
Mm-hmm. So what happened was they distorted the information. So, and there's a book out there, and it'll tell you, you can lie with, it says how to lie with statistics. You can make statistics fit anything that you're trying to present. Okay, so information can be distorted in this. So understand that there are some discrepancies in the information, but there's also in the realm of this social judgment theory, all those areas are going to be a little bit different for everybody. It's a little bit harder, isn't it, on the persuasive end of things. If you're just giving information, it's pretty much easy. But persuasive, there's a little more work to it. And so hopefully you guys can get that. I've given you a couple, in the handouts I've given you the needs theory, hierarchy, and then I've given you a couple diagrams of social judgment theory there. So, yes.
Just have a question or a comment. If you use statistics to fit the category, doesn't that take away from your truthfulness, your credibility?
It depends on how you present it. I'm just saying, not all statistics are bad, but, you know, it's been my view that I've seen people distort statistics to the point where it makes me question them. But again, it just kind of all depends how you go about presenting the statistics themselves. If it's valid information, it's valid information. Okay? Any other questions? All right, let's conclude here. To be persuasive, we need to identify with the audience. That's why we spent a good amount of time talking about the audience. You need to find the areas in which you agree. You need to explain it and not argue about it. Use that, this is the information. You do with it what you deem necessary. You want to cite authorities to give you credibility. You need to set a goal. This is what I want to accomplish in this persuasive speech. And then acknowledge that other people have viewpoints as well, and that you're not going to get everybody. You know, what it eventually ends up happening is that when someone starts to accept, and you move them along that spectrum a little at a time, eventually they change what is called a paradigm. They change their belief. And that's what you, in essence, what you're trying to do. You're trying to change someone's current belief about something. Does that make sense? And you just take them little steps at a time through that process. All right, are there any questions?